You're listening to the Intrepid Radio Program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome. It's Sunday morning. I hope you have your cup of coffee and that you are ready to fly this morning. Well, we don't have to fly. We can just sit and kind of be casual this morning. That's what Sunday mornings are. This is not an official edition of the Intrepid radio program because, as we all know, Sunday mornings is more casual. We bring a casual approach. We have an informal approach, if you will, as opposed to the formal Monday through Friday show, which isn't really all that formal these days anyway. But I'm broadcasting to you live from the makeshift studio down here in my makeshift life in Louisiana. And I want to welcome you to the program. And I'm glad that you come in. I appreciate you being here in the mornings. And glad to see you all over there in the chat room. And pretty soon we're going to have a special guest because my wife, Raini, who normally does the morning show with me on Sunday, is not available today. Raini has to go do her massages over at the Water Street Inn in Stillwater, Minnesota. And so she had a massage at 9 o'clock this morning. And she's not really on call, but they set the appointments for these people, and Raini has to let them know if she's available to do them or not. So Raini is gone this morning, and I thought maybe we could get a surrogate wife in here this morning. And so I thought of the first person who came to my mind was my dear old friend, Sarah Soderlin. Now, you all know Sarah. She used to come on the show with Rocky and I once a week. And she is a psychic medium. She is a political thinker. She is a forensic psychologist. She has been working on her doctoral degree in forensic psychology. So she's good looking. So the only reason I put that in is, I get a lot of comments this morning. Wow, how do you get all the hotties, said Field Guy. Well, she's an old friend. And not only is she a hottie, she is one of those intimidating hotties to men because she's over the top intelligent. She's a brilliant thinker, and she knows who she is and what she's about. And so it's going to be very good to have her in here this morning. And let me say good morning to some of you. Master Finn, I see that you're here. And Doug Stack is here, as is Teresa Dantone. Welcome this morning. I hope you all have your cup of coffee like I do. I don't have a beer this morning. I could have, but you know what? A Bloody Mary would be nice this morning. That would go down really well, but I'm drinking coffee. Steph, nice to see you. Cuervo Queen. And Audrica, good to see you up very early for California time. And Remelian, good to see you. And who else we got? Susie Q, nice to see you this Sunday morning. And Field Guy, of course, the constant here. He is a good friend that's always here. And I appreciate your being here, brother. And I'm still waiting for Sarah. Sarah will be coming in. She's not late or anything. I sprung this on her at the last minute. So she'll be coming in around quarter after the hour, thereabouts, maybe another 10 or 15 minutes. And we'll see her coming in. She was prepping breakfast for she and her kids and her husband. And so she's going to come in after that. And see, not only is she a self-made woman who knows her shit, she is also somebody who still likes to cook breakfast for her family. And so that's a great thing. Doug Stack says, morning all, I won't go to church. So start talking about Jeebus, Scotty. Well, I did that last night. We had some good conversations. I was on somebody else's show, and we talked about all that kind of stuff. And Scott Allen, welcome to the show this morning. And by the way, if I missed any of you in here this morning, it's because I'm not seeing it as it goes by. I'm trying to concentrate on talking and looking at the camera. We had a good night last night here. We had the Mexican crew chief, JR, He said, "You guys like shrimp?" He says, "Why don't you come over for some shrimp?" And he did some street, what he referred to as street Mexican food. And we took the first thing we did, we had a big bowl, and he cut up 2 bags of limes. And we sat for about a half an hour squeezing all the lime juice into this bowl. So we had about a big bowl full of lime juice. And then he added some things. He chopped up some cilantro, chopped up some cucumbers, chopped up red onions, and also what else did he add? He added a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. He added a little bit of habanero sauce, not much, just a dash. And we cut up mangoes, sliced them and diced them all up and put those in there into this mixture. It became this thick mixture. And the shrimp, they were the big jumbo shrimp. We sat and all peeled them and then cut them down the middle, butterflying them. And what you do, apparently, and I didn't know you could do this, you take the raw shrimp. We don't throw them on the babby as they do down in, there you go, ceviche, says Scott Allen. Yeah, and we took all these shrimp and threw them into the marinade, and you leave them in there for about 10 or 15 minutes. And while they don't cook in the traditional way that you think with heat, the acid in the lime juice cooks them. It cooks out the impurities and so on. And so then you just dip into that mix. We took hard tortillas, crunchy tortilla shells, and he made a mixture of. He used mayo and habanero. So no, not habanero. There was something else, and I can't think of what it was. Mixed it, and you spread that out on your tortilla, and then you take the shrimp and the onions and the cilantro and the cucumbers and the mango. You scoop that all up and you put it on that tortilla shell, and you eat that, and that was fantastic. And now I know Doug Stack had a crawdad feed of his own last night up where he lives, about an hour north of here. And so we had a big bag of crawdads that were all large ones, and they turn red. They look like mini lobsters. And so we were sucking head and tail, and then eating it's almost like a Mexican sushi, the way these shrimp turned out. So it was a fantastic meal. And JR said ceviche. So there you go, Audrey. I never knew it by that name. I never even knew you could eat them like that. And so it was a great dinner last night. And we had some Mexican beer, and so it was pretty good. And so we had a good dinner. And we were told, now this is going to go right through you. Now it hasn't yet, so I'm still full of shrimp. But it was a great meal. And what was neat about it? I took my blood sugar last night because I'm diabetic, and it was still right in the mid-normal range. And so it was a good meal. I think it was healthy, and there was no extra sugars in there. And so, boom, we had a great meal. Ceviche, not ceviche. All right, good to know. Ceviche. Now, I didn't hear JR call it that last night, but there you go. Hey, Corey Blake, good to see you. Welcome to the show this morning. Glad you're here. James, glad you're here. Welcome to Third World Cooking, greatest first world cooking. Ain't that the truth, James? I've eaten all kinds of foods all around the world, but I had never had that, and it was very good. Hey, Roger Rabbit. I'm not sure I'm down with eating acid cooked shrimp. I prefer my sea creatures cooked. Well, if you have sushi, your typical Asian sushi, it's uncooked seafood. And this was, it was the acidic nature of the limes that would actually cook, quote unquote, the shrimp. And it was pretty cool. Mexicans will eat anything covered in sauce, says Field Guy. You'll have to take that up with JR and find out if that's correct. So he ain't Mexican. Then he ain't Mexican, says Doug Stack. James says, when you get Mexicans on the job that respect you and accept you, you've never eaten better or worked harder. That's very true. And so we all have a mutual respect. I really respect JR. He's about my daughter's age, my twin daughters, in his late 20s. and he's a businessman. He knows what he's doing. He's got homes in San Antonio, Texas. For 28 years old, he's very successful. Makes great money at what he does. Has a great, vast knowledge of what he does. And remember, I told you I'm going to be, Rainey and I are looking into building a shipping container home or maybe a steel home. Rainey's been looking at those too. But JR is just launching his own shipping container home company. So if you're having ideas about looking into building yourself a shipping container home, JR is going to be starting his own company. And Field Guy said after Katrina, they bust Mexicans in for fast food, or they bust them in to help restore things. A lot of construction companies and crews consist of a lot of the Mexicans, and who come from. We have a crew that's been over here from New Orleans all week. They stayed in the far end of our camper, and so in the little, it's kind of like there's like 4 bunks in there, but we had 2 guys standing here. So build a shotgun house. I'll wait. I don't know what a shotgun house is. So what is that, Field Guy? And so so we had a good time last night. I just have to check and see if Sarah, if that's Sarah, I sent her the link. Okay, she's not here yet. That's okay. But we'll see we'll have Sarah here very soon, I am sure. And I'm just waiting to see her appear in the wings, and then we'll bring her in live. And so if you don't know much about Sarah, she's got her tribal group that she puts up and talks about, for all practical purposes, witchcraft, paganism. She does not come across at first blush as somebody who is a pagan or a witch, just by standards of the way we Westerners look at people. She would come across to me like more like, even though it's pop cultural and it's nothing of the same, she's like the Elizabeth Montgomery was in Bewitched. She's the blonde-haired, beautiful witch that falls out of the norm of what people think somebody who's into paganism might look like, or witchcraft. And, it used to be in the storybooks, you would look at a witch and you go, oh, they have to have green skin, a big nose, and a wart on their face somewhere, and wear tall, black, pointy hats. Well, that's not quite the case. Now, sometimes nowadays, we equate the goth look with witches. They have to be dark, and but they wear pasty makeup and do dark things around their eyes, and they all have the weird hairdos and all the necklaces and bracelets all over, and they're very the tribal goth look about them. And you know what? That's not who Sarah is. So Susie loves her pointy hat. Some of us love our pointy heads. And so so she's gonna, I don't even know what we're gonna talk about. I told her this is going to be a very informal show on Sundays, and to come on in and be casual. And so she should be here with us very soon. Wish Rainey the best. She is at home, and she is, of course, out doing massage this morning, which is a good thing. If you remember our show on Friday, I talked about the little run-in she had with one of the owners over there, and who was actually being very, I think, out of line. And he didn't pay her normal check on Friday for her week's massages because she hadn't turned in her 1099. And whereas the reality of it is nobody told her ahead of time, if you don't turn in your 1099, you won't get paid. So she didn't get paid. And I don't know if she's gotten paid since Friday. She hasn't said anything. But I have a tough time going in on Sunday morning to do massages for a company that has said, well, I'm not paying you. I'm not giving you your check because I don't have your 1099. It's like, excuse me? Maybe you could have told me ahead of time that you weren't going to cut my check if we didn't have our 1099s in. Or maybe you could have talked to the other manager who said we were supposed to have a meeting about that, and he would get our 1099 forms, which never happened. So I have issues with people that are like that. It's like I look at somebody like that and I say, you know what? I work for you as an independent contractor. You don't own me. You don't get to talk down to me. You don't get to, and that would have been my first response. And of course, Rainey's very concerned. She wants to make sure she doesn't burn the bridge by, but when somebody who is an owner or the big mucky muck manager and they come to you and they're impolite to you, I think it's all right to call them out and to say, if I'm going to lose my job because you're being impolite and I'm calling you out for it, well, that's a whole nother story. There's a whole other thing. But so I had some issues with that. Let's see. Situation room, Rocky Stucci. We can have Fat Tony go and have a conversation. I think that'd be a great idea, Rocky. You know, hey, Fat Tony should be very happy. Should you cut that check and stop the tomfoolery? And so anyway, yeah, that would be awfully nice. I almost, Rocky and other guys in here, you know what it's like. If somebody, Rocky, I'm going to address you specifically. If somebody insulted your wife like that, how would that make you feel? For me, I was ready to jump out of my skin and go rip a new asshole for this guy. And Rain's like, no, don't get involved. Don't say anything. But that would have been my take on it. Is to say, hey, dude, to be polite, you have no right talking to my wife like that. Why don't you go do the effing massage yourself, fat bastard? Don't talk to my wife that way, you idiot. So I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I would rip their soul out of their face, says Rocky. Ain't that the truth? And so I said to Rainey, I'm stuck down here. And I said to Rainey, I said, you do not know how restrained I am right now to not break the bonds of civility with this asshole. Sorry for that language on Sunday morning, folks. If your kids are listening, just explain to them what an asshole is and how it's not really a bad word. It's a word used to describe a nasty person. So, hey, I've got Miss Sarah Soderlin hanging in the wings here, and I'm going to bring her in now. She's going to be in the stream. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, man. I just listening to the show so far this morning, I thought, man, what am I jumping into? But I'm so excited to be here. Just tell your children what it is. It's that simple.
So over the microphone. So everybody, welcome Sarah Soderlin to the show.
Hey, man, thank you.
I have seen you on air since the last time we did a show with Rocky.
I know, which shame.
I know.
Because it's just, life, pandemic, craziness, weird things, all the stuff, but it's not for the lack of trying.
And I will give the typical male response to all of them and say, well, I thought about doing it, but I just never called you.
Right.
Well, thought about it.
Well, and here of us in Minnesota, like Rocky and I, we've been in touch about things, but unfortunately the priority hasn't been able to be the cool stuff, like radio show. It's been like, hey, are you safely arriving to your new home? Happy birthday to your loved ones. I wish I could catch you. I'm here for the trial. You're here to do just really the logistics of trying to safely maneuver in and out of or being someone who lives in Minnesota in the last year has been.
And, like I say, I used to have my old offices and studio in the Uptown area. I was right at the corner of Hennepin and Lake. Now, this is several years ago. This is before I even met Rainey. And so the whole ground zero for all the rioting last summer was just a couple of blocks up Lake Street from where I was, up over in the Lynn Lake area, and in between Lynn Lake and Hennepin Lake. And it was just a few blocks away from each other. Mm-hmm. So my whole neighborhood was where I was. I grew up in Minneapolis. I grew up, we were 1 block north of the Minneapolis line into Brooklyn Center, down by what is now, if you take 94, and I've talked about this before on air, but if you take Interstate 94 out of downtown Minneapolis and go north, that used to be, you'll cross 53rd to 55th Avenues. You see, and there's an exit for 53rd. We lived on the corner of 55th and 4th Street, which when you're going down the freeway now, you look up to the west and you see the wall. That wall is where all the houses across the street from us were. And
right.
our old house is still there. And the interstate was the fields we used to play in that ran for a mile in there. It was all fields and trees and stuff. And then Lyndale Avenue and the river. And so now that's all Interstate 94.
Looks all different now, doesn't it?
Ain't that the truth?
I mean, when I first moved to Minnesota, I lived off 26th and Hennepin, right up behind the diner. And that place, it's boarded up for miles now. I used to walk on a Thursday afternoon and go get some pizza at the Green, whatever it was called, the Green Mile or the Green Mill. Well, that's gone under and that's no longer there. And then we'd go up and get chicken wings, or we'd go to the skate shop. Those places are closed, like just gone. The library closed, like everything. It's just very sad. So that's been a big issue. But anyway, and when you say Brooklyn Center, hey, everyone in the nation knows where that place is now because of recent news. Right. And Lennon Lake, I think about, that's been one of the Lennon Lake, when someone recently was like, you don't even know. When people do that, I get really frustrated sometimes with that, because I think, Lennon Lake, I remember Lennon Lake, I believe it was 9 o'clock on a Friday. I was coming back from the police program there at Rasmussen, and I had my black shirt and my khaki pants, and I had my utility belt on, and just a little logo right here that said Police Law Enforcement Academy. And I, dumb Sarah, optimistic humanitarian Sarah, stopped to get gas at Lynn and Lake right there at 36, which they have a really good Instagram, by the way, that kind of humanizes their staff in a really cool way psychologically to use social media. I think is smart. And I had 3 guys go like this on the hood of my car, like I'm pumping gas, and on the other side of my car, they went, and because it's Friday night, so I'm expecting somebody to be like, hey.
Friday night at Lynn Lake?
How much for a blowjob? Like, I was waiting for something like that. Because women, and they were like, are you a cop? And I went, not yet. Can I help you? Oh, no. We'll wait.
We'll wait till you're a cop.
And then they sat there and they put their hand on their cock/gun and looked at me. And I felt unsafe for reasons beyond being a small statured woman, which I'm used to feeling unsafe for those reasons on a Friday. And I can't handle myself. But suddenly I thought, like, I'm familiar with this. Like, F the police.
Yep.
But I didn't realize it was that bad.
Now, this seems in my mind like recent history, but it's really back in the early to mid 90s was when I had my studio at Hennepin and Lake. And it felt like a very different place back then. We had Calhoun Square was kitty corner from my building, a little shopping mall there in Uptown. In the old buildings, so it wasn't like a strip mall or anything. Calhoun Square.
So beautiful. It was so beautiful.
It was a beautiful place to be. And I'd frequent the bookstores there, and I'd walk down the block to the Lotus, the Vietnamese restaurant, and I'd eat there. There was also the Uptowner Cafe for some of the best burgers in town. And the library was up the street in the other direction. And you go 3 blocks west, and you were at Lake Calhoun and Lake of the Isles. And
man, I used to rollerblade Lake Calhoun.
I used to ride my bike around Lake Calhoun. When I had my studio there, I would take my bike out. And lunchtime or mid-afternoon, and I go biking around Lake Calhoun and Lake of the Isles, and which also connected with Lake Harriet. a very long time ago.
Oh, Lake Harriet.
Yeah.
I saw a Pink Floyd cover band there once as the sun went down and it started to rain.
Really?
Oh
they
my
had
gosh!
It was at the Lake Harriet band show.
It was a cover, Pink Floyd cover
Okay.
band, and I think all that shut down too. None of that. I mean, also because of the pandemic, no group things, right? But
I used to have a house that was just a few blocks off of Lake Harriet. It was the Morningside area.
This is filthy rich days. That's filthy rich.
Yeah, I didn't have a big mansion. I just had a nice house on the top of a hill with stone walls running up. And, so it was a nice place. But we're talking 86, 87, 88 in that range of time. And used to walk down to Lake Harriet and walk around the lake, 3 miles around the lake. Gorgeous area. Now, we were in the Morningside area. Think of, if you know the area, Sarah, and those of you listening who may know Minneapolis, what's a kitty
Minneapolis. Say it, Scotty. I'm sorry. Just say it one more time the correct way, because my God, if I hear any more people on the news, Officer Tatum,
Minneapolis.
Love him. Minneapolis, like the mini apple. Like
that was
they call it the little big apple.
Do you remember that? That was the big ad campaign for tourism for Minneapolis. We're the mini apple compared to New York, the big apple.
Yes. And when I hear people go Minneapolis.
And I always loved Minneapolis. I grew up there. I remember, the IDS Tower in Minneapolis. I remember when that was built.
Hey, don't age yourself, vampire. Don't age yourself.
Oh man, that was in the early 70s, back when 94 was a bunch of fields. And we rode our bikes down when we took my buddy Chuck and I. We took a bike hike, we called it. We were in like 5th grade.
All of which, by the way, someone in the chat room said these are such northern terms. A bike hike.
A bike
Chuck,
hike. Yes.
Your friend Chuck. That's not a southern name, by the way. That's
right. It was great. And by the way, if my 5th grade son right now, Flynn, who's 11 years old, wanted to bike into the city, I'd say, no way, sir. It's not going to happen. But we rode our bikes, the bikes with the big banana seats and the big handlebars. And we rode our bikes down into Minneapolis. And we went up to the 52nd floor. No, it was 52 stories. It was the 50th floor of the IDS Tower to see the observation deck there. They had the floor-to-ceiling windows that went all the way around. And eventually, they got rid of the observation deck, and they turned it all into restaurants up there, restaurant and bar, Cleo's and stuff like that, which was actually one of my clients in the late 80s. I did work for Cleo's restaurant. I had a signing account there, which was nice. I'd take clients out to the 50th floor restaurant. We'd have the big windows in front of us and the view of the city, and just sign away. And it was a trade deal I had with them.
Beautiful.
So, what is that, Sam? Pardon me. Is that a helicopter or what is that?
Going over you?
Oh, somebody's mowing grass.
Oh.
Mowing grass here at the campground.
See, now you said it, because I'm right here off of the Army base, and so you will hear the helicopters. They've been quite active today. I don't know how on our spiritual Sundays here. We don't want to get too political. I was hot just previous to touching base with you about politics. Got to be clear and finish that sentence.
You're always hot.
I know.
About
politics. Because of I have a lot of mom friends. Now, I think it's the half-shaved head. It's a Viking thing, right? But some people take it as like, I might be a lesbian liberal thing. Sometimes I put braids in my hair. People think I'm assimilating a black culture.
Such a lesbian thing.
And sometimes people take it as like, maybe I am a swinger or something. Like weird. I kind of chameleon myself and anyway, I'm in the cities. I've got all sorts of diverse friends.
You shaved the side of your head once.
I did.
Did that.
Well, I'm a mom of boys. My husband has a shaved head. I feel left out in I do everyone's hair in the house. And all my girlfriends that are very Scandinavian and like they do hair in the cities and they're like, you should totally shave your head. Like I could do it for you, like right
Totally.
now. And I'm always saying no, 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 no. And then my car broke down on the highway and this person rescued me and I was crying and she's like, this looks like a time to shave your head. And I was like, you know what?
No,
I'm almost old enough now that no one even is going to notice. Shave it all. And had one of those. And
nowadays, who cares?
Well, now it's been
my
6
9-year-old daughter, Rowan Claire, has been influenced by you. She saw a picture of you with the side of your head shaved, and she goes, "I want to shave the side of my head, Dad." She called me one day on here while I'm down here in Louisiana, and she called me and said, "Dad, Mom said I have to call you to get permission to shave the side of my head. Can I have your permission?" And right away, my mind is going, I know exactly why her mom sent her.
Shoot. I'm going to put on my nervous boss.
I said, no,
yeah.
You can't do that.
Have her call me and I'll tell her the story of and even going back to like Bible scripture and like the power of your hair, you know, that indigenous part of me. Yes, there's a little in there.
You got a little Indian in her, folks.
I do. And the cutting of the hair is very sacred, like doing it yourself, doing things. And my husband now, and someone in the chat room's like, really, is it still? And it's like still under this side, still shaved, but you can't tell because I have a lot of hair and it's, you know, crazy. And so shaving a little bit wasn't a big deal. And luckily I had the friend that showed up on scene and was like, Sarah, stop it. Don't let the single unbirthed person influence your hair. Stop. And so it's only a strip. I didn't go full Sinead O'Connor to also date myself because I was having one of those moments where I was like, I'm tired. I was in the law enforcement academy and I was really upset of how many people will be like, you're too pretty to be here. You're too young. You're too old. You're too short. You're too female. Your boobs are too big. Your boobs are too small. Your hips are too wide. Your hips are too short. Just your like whatever.
Are just right. And so is your hair.
I appreciate that because none of it is relevant to the job completely. I mean, it makes a difference on how quickly I can grab my taser on one side and my gun on the other.
I'll bet.
But it's still just one of those things that I can't change. So let's not make a big deal out of it. And anyway, it was a life experience. We all have those. I think men buy cars, women shave their head. I did like a Britney.
Look at my hair. Should I shave my head? Because
you would be a very handsome assassin.
Yeah.
You'd look like Professor X from X-Men because you could keep your facial hair. But
yeah, I keep my facial hair.
You don't have a bad hairline. This is the deal. I think men, they get freaked out about the hairline.
Yep.
And yours is a gentle like fade. It's not like so dark that it almost looks like you have a full, completely like the head of hair you've always had. Which
see, like I've said before, they talk about Michelangelo's sculptures, how they were only compositionally perfect from one angle. And so I said, that's really what my hair does. I'm compositionally perfect from one angle. I start turning my head and, you know, it's like a huge gaping bald spot that looks like, you know, the New Guinea Islands or something mapped out on my head, you know, things like that. But,
well, it's the way you're touching your hair. I just had an epiphany. And then someone in the chat room said something about our hair is our natural veil. And it made me think about how recently in the news, there's been talk of the Nephilim. I think I sent it to you because it was like a weird TikTok. Yes, it was a weird TikTok thing about some news somewhere that was like, I never heard Nephilim. And I was like, oh, this needs to go to Scotty. And so I tossed it your way. And then I later had the translation of it and I'm looking at it. And yes, the veil and all of this things being relevant. And it was interesting because it was just this really weird space of like, you know, aliens are coming, they're in the news, angels are here, people are freaking out. Do we shave our heads? Do we not? Do we like sell all of our ammo or do we not? Like it's just this weird, crazy space where suddenly you're hearing these very like otherwise apocalyptic, life-changing. If you're an astrology witch over here, maybe you're thinking of the great shift from Pisces to Aquarius, age of Aquarius. But now it will be about that kind of stuff. It will be about aliens and Nephilim. And Scotty, you're going to be the expert in this. People are going to be calling you because that word's going to come up. Like Megan, what's her face, Fox, out there with your book. She's at Machine Gun Kelly concerts right now with your book in her purse.
That's kind of cool. I still like that picture, folks.
Isn't that cool?
What I was talking about. I saw somebody sent me a photo. I don't know if it was Sarah or somebody else had sent me a photo a couple of years ago that showed Megan Fox. Just one of those paparazzi type of shots, and she's walking through a parking lot, and she's carrying my book on the Nephilim, and she's got it kind of rolled up a bit. She's carrying it with a bottle of water and a couple of shots, and then the next year, somebody posted another picture. She's walking around and made part of the story, the book actually. She was carrying my book on the Exodus, the one I wrote with John Ward, and they were talking about it. Well, it looks like Megan Fox isn't just another pretty face. She studies this and this and this, and look at the book she's carrying by Scotty Robertson and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. So I got a couple of pictures of Megan Fox. So I tried to seize the opportunity, and I sent a letter to her publicist. I don't know if I got it to the right publicist or the right person. You try to look for those people online, and hard to find them. So I sent it to her publicist. I actually called their office. I said, "Are you Megan Fox's publicist?" "Yes." I said, "How do I get some information?" "Well, you can send it to this address," and we forwarded it on. I said, "Perfect, thank you." No. So I sent a letter, and I said I saw the pictures, and I actually sent her a copy of my other books that she didn't have. And I said, if you'd ever like to talk, and this is before she did her television show. What I didn't know at the time was all of this.
Right, she was prepping for the show.
Yes.
What was it?
Aliens and all kinds of mysteries, weird Earth mysteries and stuff like that. Gosh. And so I never did hear from her, of course. Rocky and I used to joke around about that a little bit, and I said, "Yes, Rocky, when Megan and I called her Megan, when Megan and I are out having some wine at the local winery," I said, "We'll think of you as I'm dipping my pinky into the wine," and so on and so forth. But
Megan, he'll taste this and let me know if it's your
yes. And so, well, that never happened. That was just a wild boy fantasy.
Yet it
hasn't happened.
Hey, with the end being nigh, all things.
The end is here.
It's really a great, cool, weird, strange time to be alive. And who knows? And seriously, she was reading those and she loves doing those shows. Someone in the chat was like, "What? She had a show?" Yeah. She's one of these weird underbelly people that loves conspiracy theories.
Yep.
So for people joining in the chat, if you're into weird underbelly, like conspiracy theory type stuff, I share probably a lot of cryptic things on like my Instagram. Like recently I was trying to share with people like X.com and Elon things to talk about like the conjunctions between PayPal and the great Bilderberg Illuminati, like just really weird conversations about, which are really interesting.
PayPal and the burger builders? We'll talk about that.
Well, here, let me just insert it for you for just a brief moment for people listening. Think for just a brief moment.
All right, do it.
I know that you are not necessarily a cannabis user, but having 420 recently passed. Now, for those of you listening, I work in forensic psychology, but I also kind of dip a lot into parapsychological research. Most of it's international because America is me, and how they publish things. It's quite political. And so we're trying. America, we're trying. Anyway, working with psychopaths, working with people with extreme mental chronic illnesses, such as like paranoid schizophrenia, these kinds of things, and that have killed people, going in and out of death, and then doing paranormal investigations and going in and out of kind of this space. They're very relevant. So people that abuse drugs, maybe they've had like an acid or K2 experience that went south, or they've had a mushroom experience and they can never go back to their previous cognitive dimension. And I have to do therapy for this person or counseling. And
wait. Are you saying that people can eat shrooms and never come back from that?
Oh, for sure. Some people can. Yeah.
Hey,
or have like
Doug over there in the chat room, you better think about that next time you're eating shrooms, buddy.
Well, like microdosing has been known to like be extremely helpful for like depression, PTSD, CPTSD, and other things. But people that go and take like a mass amount and then they have a traumatic experience because their trip is done in an environment where like People are coming up to you doing this kind of crap with glowy fingers and then, drugging you with GHB on the back end when you should be coming down and detoxing naturally and like doing it in a healthy, happy way. But mind you, I'm speaking from someone who's never done a hallucinogen because I'm terrified. I've seen the aversion of it, and that's just kind of why. But anyway, talking about holistic healing and this weird conversation. So imagine, if you will, for a brief moment, that you are someone who's not American. You've got a unique way of thinking. You're highly intelligent. You're Elon Musk as a child. You've got a brother you have a good rapport with, a good trusting relationship to be creative with, which is healthy. You have a mother, almost an unhealthy mother relationship. She's super sexy. She's a nude fashion model, international fashion model. She sometimes has open relationships with men because they understand business. And the husband, also political business, good looking man, is open to things like that because he doesn't believe in the constructs of like human things. Insert why Elon is with someone like Grimes. Now, this person grows up in an open environment, able to learn amazing things, a mother that has all these connections, eating a good diet, being nourished, not constrained, someone who is an open marijuana user. And Elon, imagine in his teens, he has this idea, or they're thinking like, gosh, imagine just the universe and human society. Like, we know that we're crashing resources. We know that we're a greedy species. We know that we need to get to Mars. We know that there's no way that governments or like the Illuminati, if they exist, or any major people of power, which there are people of power making decisions for the many. I mean, that's just the hierarchy of humanity. Right. And so if these people, if these people don't want to lose their power, which people in power usually don't, then how do we maneuver through this and not be like compromise? Like, we're going to need to do it ourselves. We're going to need to do it with money. We're going to need to influence the money. Yeah, man, we're going to need to influence the money. You know what we need to do? So they ended up doing PayPal, right? Elon initially. Yep. Working in and out of this, then going to other adventures, banking adventures, doing X.com, starting his own platforms in monetary situations, knowing
now, did Elon Musk found PayPal? Is he a founder of PayPal?
I believe him and his brother, gosh, I know legally those words of like founder and creator. It's not like a Microsoft situation, but I believe I want to say founders. Yeah, him and his brother.
Okay.
And then, of course,
I didn't know that about
and of course, sell it. And they did. Recently buying it back in, I think, 2018 for sentimental reasons.
Got it.
As being fully internationally aware of Chinese money, culture, influence, how social media works. At this point, he's already doing Tesla, understanding natural resources and transportation, and how Agenda 21 and eugenics works, and like ghost towns and endgame and things like that, to be able to have transportation of natural resources that don't expire. That's going to be useful. Insert Tesla. Then SpaceX, being able to have intergalactic travel that's not regulated necessarily by a government. Then insert his culture with like Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro and Elon and all of these people that are moving an exodus from California to Nashville / Texas / the Southern Triangle to greatly influence a different part of culture or mass structure in the social media spaces. Elon's there as well, still in his X.com. Right. And then Dogecoin and cryptocurrency. And knowing politics and inserting some of this and having been a part of it way back in the day, and then influencing it just shortly after having purchased PayPal, which will be the online banking system as banks are no longer needed. It's just, it's a strategic domino game that's really brilliant. And personally, I kind of see the political elites in one particular space, and it's kind of like, man, you've almost got like Bill Gates and his peeps versus Elon Musk and his peeps. And the Elon Musk peeps, who would you rather between the two of those?
Who draws your attention more?
I can't stand Bill Gates or his wife. I cannot stand the way that they slither. They're going to be associated with the Clintons. They're going to be associated with the Epsteins. They're going to be associated with the mass island situations. They're going to be associated with the drug triangle and the drug war and the child war and the war on your food and the Codex Alimentarius and trying to make vitamin C and orange juice illegal and apple cider vinegar taken out of things because it's possibly holistic and can be misused, like FDA. I don't like any of it. That's what I think. And I mean, but Elon Musk, these people are like, man, sometimes they're weed smoking Kanye West people that have gone too far down the deep end. Sometimes they're Alex Jones pooped in the punch bowl. Like, what? David Icke said, what?
Yep.
You know, and
David Icke.
They're the extremes. They are the absolute extremes.
Yes.
And that's as weird as Bill Gates. He's an extreme as well, only he's got a lot of money and uses it to not be as transparent and create a facade. The other people are extreme, but they don't really care about their facade. And so they do look crazy.
No, let me ask you a question.
They look crazy. I work in that field, I can tell you.
These guys who make these massive fortunes out of things they've done. You're talking Bill Gates. You're talking Elon Musk.
Bill Gates
I don't see
2% of the world's resources.
Go ahead.
2% of the world's resources in the hands of one man?
Yep. And here's the interesting thing is you see, this is, excuse me, this is a guy who started by making computers, computer platforms and so on. And now he's arguably the richest man in the world. But now that seems to have, what comes with that, being the richest man in the world, is that desire to be influential over the world, which is what you see a lot happening with Bill Gates. I don't see that much from Elon Musk. I see Elon Musk wanting to go out there and be inventive and be use his ingenuity and do things that are good, but less about trying to influence people in the way they think. So what's your thought on that?
I think that really shows that mass absolute spectrum and how the misuse of power and greed is used, because I have been known to see in like psychopaths and God complexes and why if they're so smart, how then did they get caught? Because they felt like they were over and above and the extension of the law. They felt like their power exceeded the power of the universe. Just because you are harnessing it or are aware of it does not mean you are its victim or its master. It just means that you realize your part in it. And I think that Bill Gates and these individuals are trying to harness and control and like be the master.
A mastery.
And that is going to fail. It's inevitably going to fail, like every master before it. It's a misuse of power that it's no longer at the fulcrum. It will, by design, by energy, fail. It will fail. These people aren't real doctors. Go Google and ask Siri who the most powerful doctor in the world is, and it will tell you Dr. Bill Gates. These are people that were like, Bill Gates, we love you. Please put us on your ark. Please get to here. Take a doctorate from our university. He didn't. This is someone who didn't create, well, he's responsible for Microsoft, and all the virus programs afterwards that he sold to you people. And this isn't someone who created that program. His best friend, I think Paul Allen, was in the garage doing all the work while Bill Gates was smart enough to steal, a thief, someone who wants to have it or take it. And this is different than have it and share it. Greed and envy, jealousy, these are similar but different. And I think these people are short-sighted. Bill Gates and his team are short-sighted, but wanting power. I think Elon understands sacred geometry. I think he understands the Fibonacci. I think like him and Einstein and Lombroso and Leonardo da Vinci and all the weird, very transparent because they know they're crazy, but fuck it, kind of people.
The crazy ones.
I don't know if I can say the F word. The crazy ones that are writing in the mirror backwards because they understand it's how you see and how you think and that you take things in and that you share it, that it's your contribution to the mass. Now, I think Elon, knowing this, now keep in mind, you've got Bill Gates who's going to be doing vaccines. And yes, I mean, gosh, conspiracy theory insert, I know, but there is a microchip associated to nanotechnology. If you want to go the money route and try and think that crypto won't happen, maybe buy some shares in nanotechnology. Just saying. But anyway, if that party wins, this is going to be the loss of your autonomy. This is going to be Bill Gates's, and mind you, this pitch sounds really beautiful, right, Scotty? Wouldn't it be nice to travel internationally with your children and not have to worry about passports? Wouldn't it be scary to be caught at the border and be concerned that you didn't have a vaccine, or that you were in a hospital where you couldn't speak that language and you were diabetic and allergic to oxycodone? Have them scan your code so that everyone knows everything and you don't have to worry.
Right.
That sounds great. That sounds cool.
You know, let me insert a thought here. Back when I was in the church, back through my youth group times in the late 70s, and when I became a youth pastor in the 80s, in that conservative fundamentalist Baptist setting, we had eschatology, and it would talk about, you read about the end times in the Bible, the book of Revelation, the other books. It would talk about, and in the end times, no one would be able to buy or sell without the mark of the beast in their forehead.
Snowden saying you will own nothing and you will be happy about it.
You know, I was just listening to Snowden talking this morning. Exactly. Is that now, how much do you think that fits into the picture of, say, take religion out of it? Say these old prophets like John, who wrote the book of the Revelation. Remember, it wasn't as structured then as we think of it now, that it's all religious, it's Baptist or Catholic or whatever. It was just his prophecies. His prophecy, like a Nostradamus type prophecy, was that there was going to be a day where humanity would be persecuted if you didn't bear the mark of the beast, as he called it, or you couldn't buy or sell, trade goods, food, anything without the mark. You couldn't travel without the mark. You couldn't do this. How much do you think that all of this fits into old Nostradamus type prophecy?
I think it does a lot. And I know a lot of people kind of will suddenly like drop off when they hear scripture and go, oh, there's religion again. But what's interesting is that whether or not you subscribe to Christianity, and all of the books, Gnostic or not, published or not, pre-Table of Nicaea or not, they're all telling a story that is a perspective, that is information. And so to take that along with Buddha, along with like Hindu, along with like early Indian tales of the Jade Mile and these stretches of Atlantis, like take all the stories, because Christians should be included. It's a big influential part, and it has reigned supreme over continent and history and generation for good reason. People want to keep it, and the Freemasons and all the secret people, right? They keep that knowledge sacred for a reason. It is helpful and very useful, and Coptic and sea scrolls and that kind of stuff. That's information. Do I think that it is speaking some truth about the shift from Pisces, where it's empathy, it's cleanse you in my blood, it is communion by water, it is be cleansed, it is confess your guilt, it is me, it is guilt, it is I hope you feel clean enough, like power of the yin energy, to the great shift of what we've seen throughout history, which is the like Byzantine, the Mel Gibson, Scottish, the war of, what's his name in history, Sarah? Get it? William Wallace. The raids of William Wallace. These times of the Roman Empire. These are also the great Pluto astrological shifts of air. And in these spaces, the human, man, we're really easily influenced by chemicals, let's just say that. And here we are in air, where chemtrails, where HARP, where information, where the structure of information and lack of empathy really are going to matter, whether it's 1984 or Johnny Mnemonic or any sci-fi, really all the same writer. Bless him. We still have him for a little bit longer. I believe he didn't die yet, did he? Oh God, I hope not. Anyway, no, I'll cry. Anyway, these I will, I swear. These people, like Equilibrium or Gattaca, these where you're seeing a civilization of people who are removing their serotonin, they're regulating their hormones, they're trying to supplement adrenochrome, they are regulating literally to feel, not feel, to live, not live. And whether or not you subscribe to that, which gets kind of weird, or you just want to stick with the nanotechnology and the idea that a lot of heavy metals in our body really are not good. They really aren't. They just really aren't. And medicine shouldn't have adverse side effects. The fact that we are okay with going, well, I mean, you got to trade diarrhea for vomiting. No, you really don't. You don't.
You don't.
There's actually plant medicine and natural medicine and herbal remedies and things that the natives and Christians and Nordic people and people before us, like, oh my gosh, when I think of the Library of Alexandria going down and all the knowledge that's lost there, like, ooh, what happens when suddenly with no one having books that like our grid goes down? Like if this happens, everything is in the ether, everything is in the cloud, everything, people don't have scrapbooks anymore. It's in the cloud. What's going to happen? I don't know. I look at the Mayans and I think I don't see any tools laying around. Really? You think our laptop's going to withstand a few hundred years, but people are going to look back and go, we have these great structures like the IDS building. I wonder how they did it. It's because everything was in the cloud. But yes, I think that religion is because of that.
Let me slip into the kind of psychic mode, your take on certain things. Do you feel that we are reaching that kind of a paradigm? Do you believe this is where we're going? Now, you can observe that just intellectually. You can observe politically. You can observe. What do you feel on a spiritual level? Where do you think we're heading with all this?
Ooh, well, it's been kind of fun. Having been someone that, gosh, I've been working with witches and spiritual stuff and paranormal conferences for, I don't want to say decades, but decades. And it's always been a fringe. It's always been a taboo. It's always been like, well, I don't really talk about this sort of thing Monday through Friday, but one of these things.
I was prepping people for you, by the way, by telling them you had green skin and a hooked nose and a wart on your face somewhere.
I do. It's right here. It's right there. I always hate it when I do my makeup. I hate it. But my son was like, you can't get rid of it, mother. It's how people know you're
I've got an Abraham Lincoln mole. Let's see, what side is it on? Right there.
Oh, that's your This is our good speaking. It's the phrenology, whether you believe in that sort of thing or not, right?
Do you have to shave that in the morning?
I don't. I've not shaved or plucked or I've not waxed my face. So I still have peach fuzz. And yes, I have a lot of peach fuzz. Like if you look at my Instagram pictures and blow it up, you're going to see like peach fuzz, because I've had women be like, well, I get waxed. And I'm like, man, if it's anything like leg hair, I don't want to have that responsibility. Like, I think I know hair by now. My armpits, I have to shave them. My legs, I don't have to, but now I do, right? It's like these cultural things where once you start, you can't not do it anymore. It's part of adulthood that people don't tell you about. And I don't want to do any of this. So I'm trying to
I just shaved my face for the first time yesterday in about a week. I was so grizzly and the white beard is all coming out. And I thought, do I grow it and be Santa Claus this Christmas, or do I just shave? I just soaked in the steam and I let it all steam up and I just shaved it all down. And,
see, now I know I'm not a man, not just because I have a vagina and a uterus and ovaries and things like that. Well, we have to be clear about these things these days, but also the facial hair. I don't feel like even if I shaved my face, even with my gypsy roots and my ability to be a sideshow and do divination palm readings, that I could grow a beard. I just don't have it in me.
Thank God
I'm jealous.
Small things.
Well, I feel like if I were a man that could grow facial hair, I would do, I don't know, I'd want to change. I like, the beard competitions where the men that have the mustaches and they do like, they dangle.
Well, sometimes I grow out the full stash and I do the little, the little curve. I don't like to do the big thing. I think that's a little wacky. Some guys, if they're into that, they can do that all they want. But, I have the full stash and I'll do the waxed ends, and then I get tired of it after a while. I shave it back down to the Errol Flynn length, I call it. And sometimes I've had the full beard. Sometimes I get rid of the full beard. Oh, Steph, thank you for that information. For all of those of you watching the chat room, Steph has a cute little mole under her boob, she put. And no, it doesn't have hair. And that's why it's cute.
Well, it also could be a third nipple. Don't forget, that's another sign of a witch.
I've got a third nipple.
I do too.
It's not in a weird spot. I think we talked about this on Rocky.
We've talked about the third nipple. It's not nothing new.
About our nipples.
Not nothing new.
I've got like sorry, I am what I am. It's like got a little side nipple on the nipple, and it's like what the hell is that? And I've looked at it and I'm like, it's not a mole.
That's how you keep the aliens from getting rid of you. That's your ticket right there. It's not the vaccine. It's not the chip. It's you stand in line and you go, look, I've eaten my twin.
Look, I've got a third nipple.
Yep. I'm study me like they did in the Nuremberg spaces. I'm weird. They'll keep you for a little bit longer.
Sarah Soderman, you said study me next?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. You know, not very many people get the language games these days. It's really sad. It's been sad. It's just been, again, before I connected with you this morning for this coffee talk, I was touching base with someone about politics. And I try never to talk about things when I'm heated because I think that's important. Right. I think it's important to be heated and to note that you're passionate, but then to not be like, you know what? Like it's also not good to discipline your children when you're in this space. It's not good to talk to you.
The angry space, the passionate, angry space.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a good time for like masturbation or a shower or a run or self-care.
When is the best time for masturbation?
When you want. And when it doesn't infringe on the liberties of others.
There you go.
That's important.
That's very important.
Not in a public place. That's also important. And what's sad is I've had this conversation with grown people, women and men, mostly men, but that's just because of access. Also,
you know, when I was a younger man, it was almost taboo in society for men to talk about masturbation, or even women. And, you know, we might say, yeah, it's okay for women to masturbate because guys like watching. But for guys to admit that they did that was almost taboo. No, I don't have to do that. You know, I think it was part of the virility of being a man. I don't need to do that because I got women around me to do that. And so, but it's become less and less taboo to say, hey, everybody does it, whether you admit to it or not. And if you say you don't do it, I think you're lying. Everybody does it.
Well, what's unfortunate is we, the people, were very careless with our Hoover Dam when we shifted in the great, dare I say, the CERN 2012 shift, just allowing like Facebook to include likes. The social media expansion of algorithms no longer being what you type, but being what it thinks that you want, that you want, that you want. That we went from letting like Reeve Khalil or Avi Copland or beautiful musicians of our time be overlooked by Cardi B and her wet ass P word.
Yeah. That should show you, if you compare the Cardi B video to politics, you start to understand why there seems to be a predominance of thought in one area of the political.
Well, the gatekeeping, we went from 100 years ago, you don't talk about that at all, to now it's talked about so much that no one cares.
Yep.
We put up one stoplight because we needed to have something at the intersection to let people know it was a crossing. And then we put up 50 signs. So now no one has enough time or energy to look at it all and no one cares. We overflooded it. And now, that's unfortunate.
You think that's a dangerous gradualism that we have gone through to get here?
Oh, very, because like it's a weird space where like even you mentioned now, I have and you're a dad, so you get this. I've, you know, my two boys are 7 and 9. So like when we talk about morning wood or nocturnal emissions or these kinds of things, like when it's appropriate to do this and where and how and cleaning and hygiene and all the stuff, it's important. And we have to talk about this. Now, it's also interesting because my 7-year-old, he has a child in school who is, and we won't get into this because that's a whole nother show, but who is transgendered and
transfigured.
Transgendered.
Oh, gender. Transgender.
In the first grade.
In the first grade.
And so we've had to have these clear discussions of like, how come this person can do this and I can't? And what's the difference between pretending and actually being? And like, this has been an actual situation in my house, which has been interesting because I've had it with clients and I've always been helping as a counselor, not necessarily having the personal experience of how to handle it, because you don't want to hurt feelings. And
right.
you know, but you also need to make very clear boundaries clear. And so I call my dad, who's of a different generation, and he says, well, you need to call the school right now and you need to have them pull that child out and have those parents be held accountable, because that shouldn't even be something that the children need to deal with. That shouldn't even be, that's not school. Nope. And are you, and like my dad, you know, he's like, are you going to do that? Because that's your job as their mother. You need to be going down there. You know, he's kind of a traditionalist.
What do you think? What did you do?
Well, it's interesting because then I therefore bear a burden based on who I know and who has raised me and who I know is a good man and who has good intentions. And I know what the intentions are. And these spaces are very relevant to the right now, that it requires pause and thought, and that we not do anything because it's easy, and that we definitely not do anything because we're forced, and that we not do anything that doesn't allow for time and pause, like religion would say discernment, to be able to close your eyes, close your ears, and in all ways know what it is you're doing before you do it, especially when you know that it's going to influence people that you love and people that you don't love. And so I want to be able to do that. And I kind of feel like I wasn't given that opportunity. Instead, it was my son coming home and going, you know, well, I don't have to be a boy if I don't want to. And me going, pardon me? And well, I've got a friend at school that, you know, last year they were a girl and now they're a boy.
You know, call me old-fashioned, but if my son, my 11-year-old son, came home and said, I don't have to be a boy anymore if I don't want to, my response would be, yeah, you do. You know why? You're a boy. You can choose to alter that, augment that, take drugs to augment that and change yourself. You can dress differently, you can act differently, but you will never change the fact that biologically you are a boy. So that would be my response. And of course, we're conditioned nowadays in our society to be accepting of everything. Not everything has to be accepted because it's become culturally accepted or societally accepted in certain circles. There's this push to make anything that I want to be, I can therefore insist that all of society around me has to accept what I want to be or the thing that I think. Now, if somebody wants to, if a guy comes along and says, I want to be a girl, more power to you, dude. That's your thing. But I will never succumb to teaching that as a normal thing. It is an abnormality. Pardon me for saying it. I might get hate mail from that one. It's an abnormality. How often has that happened throughout society? What kind of numbers are involved? When it's a minuscule percent of people that do that, all of a sudden it becomes something that's an abnormality. And especially for parents who push that on their children.
See, that's where I struggle. As a mandated reporter, I almost wonder, where are my lines? Because in the last few years, this has been an issue. And I know some states right now even are passing policies. I know Florida is one. I believe Arkansas is another. Tennessee, I believe the third. Missouri's changing some pretty interesting gun laws in their spaces. They're more gun focused. And here in Minnesota, we've done some things just in this past weekend that I cannot even believe. Anyway, politically speaking.
Like what? Like what? Tell us.
Well, this morning I was really frustrated. Removing all of the peace officers from the school grounds because it makes students feel anxious to have a police officer on duty. I think that's a mistake. I think that having someone on hand close where you have a vulnerable population, deterring crime where people are most deviant in their developing stages, and also having a police officer that can integrate what a police officer does and is, and being friendly to a demographic that needs to and is easily impressionable with equity things going through the district. I think a police officer's presence is more than just physical safety, it's emotional safety as well. I think that that's a mistake, and I think it's a mistake. And the fact that other people don't, it's kind of weird to me.
my kid will be emotionally impacted by seeing a police officer?
Because people are anxious. Mind you, I feel anxious not having a police officer there when your crime rate is up more than 40% on school grounds.
Exactly. You know, when I was a kid, different times, I realize it's amazing how much times have changed since I was a kid. When I was in grade school, in the late 1960s. And in through the 70s, and you know, I didn't get to middle school till 71 or 72. And in 1960s, if you saw a police officer at school, there was utter respect because they were authority figures. You were there like, oh, is he going to talk to the class? Is he going to show us his gun? Cool. You know, that's what it was. And nowadays, the presence of a police officer at school is what? It's like your local school, like you just said. They're like, we're thinking of doing away, or they want to do away with having police protection at school now because it makes kids anxious.
It makes kids anxious. Well, and I was having this discussion with someone who was one of the people that was like, well, this is, you know, I think it's a great idea. And I was like, why? And she's like, well, I remember my officer at school and how and then she reiterated the story of how when she was 14 and high on ecstasy, walking around at 5 o'clock in the morning with her friends out bat bashing, that she had a negative experience. And I thought to myself, empathize with the perspective of the officer and what is happening right now. Well, I was being victimized. Well, the fact that they didn't immediately put their personal bias into play, which police officers should not, the fact that you were under the influence, the fact that many laws were coming into play at that point and they protect and serve the law, not you. Look at that mini you sitting there. He's a young Viking lad with
there he is.
Beard. I love
That's
it.
Sam. Sam, this is Sarah. I don't think you've ever met Sarah.
No, he's always been out somewhere whenever you have parties or gatherings and I'm there. Our paths always cross. Yeah, I know.
Well, Sarah's been a friend of mine, been part of my life for about 13 years, I want to say. I think it wasn't it 2007?
Yeah.
That
it was
you and I first met at the Stanley Hotel?
Yeah, we were doing phenomenology, the Gettysburg event.
Yep.
And
that was all between 2007 and 2009. We were doing all those events together.
Yeah.
And
the Stanley Hotel.
The Stanley Hotel, I think that was where we first met. And I want to say that was 2007.
Yeah.
It might have been
Dave Schrader event. It was a Dave Schrader event. And back in that time, the big people in the field were like Jason and Grant. Amy Bruni wasn't on the show yet. She was rooming with some people there at the event. And like, you were the chair.
She had just started.
They announced that weekend. The chair flew at James or at Grant or something that on one of our investigations. That it was that weekend. That was an interesting weekend at the Stanley Hotel, which of course almost went up in flames this time last year. People were watching it on the hillside going, no, don't take the Stanley.
Sarah and I, the first time we met at that event, we actually sat alone in one of the big meeting rooms. It was as you entered the Stanley, it was at the far right end.
Yeah, the grand piano room.
Big room with a big fireplace, the piano room. Mm-hmm. And we sat up in there till all hours of the night, just talking and comparing notes and all that. So that's how we got to know each other way back 13 years ago.
Gosh. So. And you know what? I remember that weekend we hung out with Father Andrew Calder, who did a lot of the exorcisms for Paramount State. And he's since passed. And gosh, we stayed out on the porch and just had some really good conversations.
It's not a porch, it's a veranda.
Yeah, that probably tells you I'm from Missouri, huh? Out on the porch.
Yeah. Out on the porch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the veranda.
Sam had something he wanted to interject because you heard us talking about the school stuff.
Oh, yes.
The police at school. Coming from a younger generation, usually if you saw a police officer at the high school, it was who got into a fight, who got caught selling drugs, who got caught smoking a joint behind the cafeteria, during lunch. That's all I really wanted to put it. From a younger generation, if you saw a cop at school. Yeah.
Not a consistent.
Say that again, Sarah.
I said so. It was more of an indicator, or like an indicator of a bad thing, rather than being a consistent.
Oh yeah.
Current.
Yeah.
And see, that matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If there was cops at school, somebody was in trouble. Somebody had done something. It wasn't just coming to talk to the school in a seminar or something like that. There was something going on.
Do you think that removing the officers that maybe are at locations, like I think they're wanting to remove some of the ones from like down on Kellogg Avenue in St. Paul, like some of these very high, do you think that it's going to be a good idea or a bad idea?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know the high school I went to, when they finally put a police officer stationed in the lunchroom every day during lunch, the fights went way down. There used to be 3-4 fights every single day at lunch, every day. And they finally were like, excuse my language, they're kind of like, fuck it, we're tired of this. So they asked the city to station a police officer there during lunch, and it happened a lot less. I know that much.
Man,
people were still doing dumb shit, but
yeah. Well, yeah, they're kids, right? It's one of those. I don't know. I think it's going to be again, and this is why my response was, it's going to be a trial and error at this point. When you remove officers, that you can look at the stats and say it probably deters a lot, but how many officers is there documenting like they're harming the students? Very, very little, if any. Anxiety is subjective, so let's not go there. And we're just going to have to wait and see. And that means that what we're going to be waiting and seeing is how many kids die from the lack of officer presence. And why are we doing that with a population of vulnerable children? I don't understand that. I guess I just want to know what the perspective is. Like, should I care about the anxiety? Right. I don't care if students are anxious. I don't care if a young student is anxious about an officer's presence because of either their ignorance or the fact they have an ounce in their pocket, or they're probably up to no good. I know when I was in high school, I was nervous to walk around. I knew I was guilty.
You know how you get over that anxiety with school kids and cops being present? Education, you talk to the kids about it. Well, this is why we have the police officer here. And if you're not doing anything wrong, you got nothing to worry about. If you're doing something wrong, you might have something to worry about. But cops, we're teaching our kids in this society that cops are killers of dark-skinned people. That's what we're teaching kids.
And it's not true.
What?
And it's not true. I mean, for anybody listening, it's one of those, I really get very frustrated. And just last night I was thinking about, sometimes I feel quite guilty that I was working in law enforcement, and when the Black Lives Matter movement pressured my family to the point of unsafety, that we moved.
Yeah.
That my obligation to humanity and the city and the people and the public should have been to continue to put myself in danger to make it a better place. There's a weird part of my brain that's irrational, that my husband and my children and people that love me are like, that's stupid. But I really do feel that yearn, and to have to pause that feeling because it's not rational for what it does to the people around me, and to take some time away and to continue my education and to continue to speak and research and help people that are taking and putting their lives at risk. When you see the numbers and you see just the I'll say abuse, misuse, it's really strange. I don't understand it. I think the lack of education and the fact that, people that are out there screaming, F the police. And I know some of them, and I'll be like, have you ever been on a ride along? No, I would never. I'm just like,
why not?
Why? What is so gross about the people that you've put in a space to protect you? It's a weird separation. And I don't know, the removal, someone had chimed in the chat room. What did they miss? Just that Minnesota, in their dismantling of police and in their struggles with the police reform, which I'll tell you is not going well. The removal of police in the cities has not gone well, and crime is continuing to go up, and hiring has gone down, and safety has gone down, and drugs have gone up, and mental health has gone up, and the lack of social workers feeling safe because they can't call the police because there's a hold, or there's a sorry call back later in that place that we're reporting. So then they've now gone to telehealth, but just as maybe racist Joe Biden would have said, how do all those people get to the library and use the internet?
Right.
It's sometimes the fact that when there's a misuse of money, having a laptop isn't as important as having a gun or food or a new pair of shoes or backpack or something that you do need to prioritize when you're living on a low income. So there's just certain little things that just get missed and misused and abused, and makes me really, really sad, because children usually are always, or the most vulnerable are always, the victims, the mentally ill, the children, and the elderly. And what I have seen in the last few months of the abuse of that is just absolutely appalling. And so spiritually, it's heavy. Emotionally, it's exhausting. And when you're trying to do the right thing, it feels like you're in a space that's pressuring you to not go there, or to be quiet, or to shut up. That's very scary to me. It is very like 1984 Animal Farm type aggression that I don't like. I don't understand censorship. I feel like if you're scared of information, that's a personal problem, and you should have to deal with it personally. And if it affects me, then I'll deal with it. People in the chat room are talking about, what is it, 203 or the online ability for social media to edit things. And editing is quite important, as we've all seen in the Mr. LeBron, and being able to say something and then go back and edit it. And people going, well, he went back and edited it. Well, if only we had allowed that for the president on January 6th. It should not be a pick and choose. It should not be a favoritism. It should not be well, just because you can and you should and you did and you didn't. It's that if you have the responsibility and know the power of your words, that you take a minute before you speak when you know it's influential, and you say the right thing at the right time. And when these people don't, they should be held accountable. And I think Ohio said they're going to be banning the NBA from having anything to do with their state. This morning, Arizona saying they've done, counts and miscounts, and they're calling in the National Guard for states of emergency for their state. Missouri is saying that any federal gun laws that get passed, they're not even going to accept it. They're going to turn a blind eye and say, everybody do with what you need with your guns. Like, there's some really crazy things happening with the states right now. And Minnesota, for some reason, is removing their police. They are, another thing, because of the pandemic, they're removing standardized testing. And so again, immediately this feels really good, right? Like, oh, well, yeah, F standardized testing. It's so racist. Only literate people can do it. Only people with the right brain, cognitive health, and have had a good breakfast that can sit long for 2 hours. And with MTV and commercials and screen time, people don't have that. ADD is really high. And with all the medication and lithium in the air, people just can't sit still. Like, every child can't. You're absolutely right. Standardized testing is kind of weird and a miss and strange and not really the problem. Or is it the problem? Well, let's just remove it. Let's just remove it. And look at all the people of color, look at all the individuals flooding the entry for universities. It's great. We see this reverse racism, and all these people are coming into the universities. And you know what? All of us sitting here who've been here and done that, you know what we try and say? Go back.
What?
Don't come this way.
Yeah.
Right? This is a debt highway. Listen to me. Listen to me give you experience. I don't need you to educate me. Okay.
There's something that occurs to me just as we're sitting here talking, is that we've got a society that wants to try to equalize everything, meaning like take the word socialism and apply it to society, to social factors. They want to equalize. They want to equalize the sexes, the genders, everybody's the same, everything. But when it comes to standardized testings, they don't want to have a standard because everybody's different. No, you don't have the right kind of breakfast. You don't have the right kind of everybody should have the same kind of education when there's a public school system. We've got a public school system that offers breakfast. My kids, if we skip breakfast, many times we do, because nobody gets up on time anymore. Trying to get everybody wrangled to have breakfast. I did the grand experiment with my little kids now. The grand experiment. Hey, we're all going to get up at 6 o'clock.
Oh,
and we're going to get up at 6 o'clock. We're going to get ready for school, and we're going to have breakfast together. I think it was 6:30, because we normally have to leave at 7:30. My kids aren't even out of bed getting dressed till almost 7:15, and it's a hassle every morning. It's like, guys, come on. I woke you up a half an hour ago. Why aren't you guys up? It's like dragging them through the mud to get them out of bed to put clothes on to go to school. And so having morning breakfast, now you might just say that's a discipline issue and so on, but you know what? I like to do that for my kids. The point being, my kids can go to school and they can have breakfast at school. They offer breakfast at school. They offer lunch at school. So the excuses, I think, to say that kids, you can't have standardized testing because they don't have breakfast. Some of them don't have breakfast. They don't have parents that'll give them breakfast.
Well, to know that standardized testing didn't work, and so you're going to remove it, but to think that it was the problem and that it's going to fix all problems is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And that mass entrance, what it has is it's like and again, causation doesn't equal correlation or vice versa, but therefore you're going to have a flood of entrance. You're going to have high debt. You're going to have a lack of exclusivity and therefore a lack of content. No, you're not. That doesn't mean content goes down. Yes, it does.
Well, it's like
teacher to student ratio has to be met.
Like Master Finn just said in the chat room, he said, instead of raising the bar to create more educated citizens, they've chosen to lower the bar in the name of equality.
And there's a reason.
That's going to leave us where? He asks.
There's a great reason because, and it's something that's subtle. It feels good in the time, which is whether or not we say it's a KGB tactic of the mind, baby, because I appreciate that. They're very patient. Or we say it's Chinese traditionalism, control, regardless of what we see as the villain. We can say we know what means what in a strategic, like if any of us played Risk growing up, you understand like, like sometimes you have those initial frontline costs at long-term gain. Right. And as a society, whether it's eugenics or gentrification or whether it's, whomever's pulling the whatever, you do look at the way policy moves, and it is not and has not and will not be in the best interest of the people. It hasn't been for a very long time. Why are we thinking that these policies are? There has not been a change. No. When there was a change that was tried to make, immediately you have a president that comes in and does more executive orders consecutively than I believe any other president has, while he takes more time away from his people. I say its people, his people, than any other president has, than to address the public. And for what? Just to redact and remove and that just it. I was really scared there. I mean, I'm still scared, and I hate to be in an emotional state. So I sit back and think, what is it that is going on? What is it that we can do? What is this for? And it's not to help people. It's not to make, when someone's like, well, it makes children anxious to see an officer. Well, then you need to teach them how not to be anxious.
Yeah, your parents need to teach your kids
out after high school.
That's just like saying a parent needs to, if your kid's lacking breakfast, you need to get up and make your kid breakfast. Or you need to teach them. My mom sometimes worked till 2 and 3 in the morning, and as a waitress when I was young, and so she didn't get up and make us breakfast every morning. But you know what she did? She bought cereal, she bought milk, she showed us where the bowls were and the spoons were, and she taught us how to wash dishes. And so all of that came in the late 1960s. I was doing that. We were latchkey kids in the 60s.
Yeah, the latchkey turnkey kids.
Yeah, that's what we were. And mom would leave for work at 4 in the afternoon, and many times leave instructions. Hey, I've taught you how to do this. There's pot pies and TV dinners in the freezer. And that's kind of how we grew up. Not because my mom was a negligent mom, but because we were poor kids. We were a poor family. And she worked as a waitress on waitress wages and tips in the late 60s and all through the 70s, raising 3 kids on her own. And
now, can I give you an interesting analogy with that?
Sure.
Knowing how your mom worked and knowing where you came from, and I see that even as the American people, coming from a place where after the Revolutionary Wars and these battles between each other and establishing our independence and getting to the space where we're really trying to, whether it's the Great world experiment or not, make democracy happen. Putting things into cursive, writing it down on paper, declaring it, fighting for it, defending it. And then I think about, I too had kind of childhood, knowing how to make my breakfasts and things like that. I kind of felt like I grew up too early, and then working in counseling and things. I think that childhood, in a sense, gosh, you try and prolong it because it is an hourglass,
Right.
to the table in a sense. And so I, like, my oldest is 9. Now he knows how to make scrambled eggs and toast. And if he had to, he could. And he's involved in the teaching process, but as a part of a mother coming from a healing space of that, I feel required to, like, make breakfast, make sure that they don't have to do those things. Even though I know that if they had to, they could, and practice makes perfect. I'm trying to give them that childhood space to do other things, that you don't have to worry about your food. You don't have to worry about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All of your needs have been met. Go out and be innovative before the world smothers you. But is that the right thing to do, or is that their privilege? Someone in the chat room had mentioned privilege, and it's always a battle. You try and teach your child the best, but you want to make them prepared. I think, and your mom knew that you guys were prepared and able. And how are we doing that with removal of stuff? How are we doing that with our American people and our children in the public schools by introducing equity and censorship? And you can't, like, how are we exposing them subtly, helping them teach how to cope, and providing that their needs are met without making them dependent? Like, that's what a government is. It's like that subtle thing. And I think that where we're headed is not so subtle. And I think it's making us far more dependent. It could be because we realize that parents aren't there. And it could be because, and you start seeing like Officer Tatum and the far right going in this direction, where then they start going, well, that domino is because the home is broken, and that because there aren't 2 parents and people are poor, so they're constantly working. So the school is the third parent. So that's why we have to pick up the pieces. And so, but then instead of providing more opportunities for the parents, we're providing opportunities for the school. So see, it's why police are the problem. No, police are not the problem. Police are the people's, they're responding proximity to the shitstorm that's from the problem.
Yeah, so damn spot on all this
right?
stuff.
Well, it's people don't, it's a ripple effect where if you go back, then it's going to be like, oh, well, the parents aren't there. Okay, well, we got to keep the parents. Okay, well, if the parents, we got to encourage that. Well, how do we do that? It starts with like, well, I'm getting a divorce. Really? Why? Well, that's none of your business. Well, you brought it up.
Yep.
Well, if you must know, it's because of this. Oh, well, I know a really good counselor. Divorce is really hard on the children. If there's not abuse going on, well, he doesn't let me get my nails done.
Yep. Or some other such nonsense. Yes.
Or some other such nonsense. Or he or she. This is not what marriage is. This is not what divorce is. We've made things that, damn, there's no value. There's no value in anything. And it's going to feel that pressure, that resistance when you build the dam of boundaries. You're going to feel some pressure. You might not feel great.
I think this is all part of that gradualism of de-individualizing people and making them more on a social level with everyone else. It's that taking away, when you see socialist governments at play, they're taking away individual responsibility or ability or opportunity for ownership, to create their own way, to do their own thing. Now we are seeing more of a trying to, collectivize everyone. Everybody has to be in that same category. Everybody has to be now, and it seems so contradictory because you can have your sexes over here, your genders over there, you're doing this, and we have all this talk about diversity and so on. But what we're really trying to do is bring everybody down to the same level, and that's a controllable factor.
As religion has dissipated, we need a step religion. We need a step parent to help us find a value.
Surrogate religion, yes.
And it's not been in our roles, our idols. It's not been in the established Hollywood people that we give credence to. It's not been shown in our pay. It's not given to people in any, we don't, right now, our children are really struggling to see value because they see idiocracy coming to life. They see poo-poo papa getting a million likes. And then if you're like I love music, I love hip hop, I love underground music. My husband's a studio musician. So I'm always listening to different musicians. And I just suddenly realized I don't have my wedding ring because I left it in the shower. Anyway, guys, I am married, happily married. It just occurred to me. I took my shower this morning and came up here with my coffee, and I'm afraid it's going to go down the drain because I've lost some weight because my dad's sick, and it's just anyway.
I don't like taking off my rings at all. My wedding, I've got my wedding ring, and I've got my coin ring that Raini had made for me out of a coin. $15 or $20 at the Renaissance Festival. And there's the little story around the silver ring. That's the ring she got me when we were dating, and she went into Walmart and she bought this ring for like $9.99, and brought it up. And I've told this story before, and she said, I got you something to show my love. And I said, what is that? She goes, I got you this ring. And she goes, I got it for under $10. And I said, I said, baby, that's love. And she said, that ain't nothing. She said, I got you the matching Zippo lighter. And it was the same color. And so she gave me this ring, and she was all concerned when we actually got married that she wasn't getting me a ring. I said, this is the ring. That's the $9.99 ring still on my finger. And then she got me the more expensive, almost twice the cost, to have a coin crushed into a ring for us.
Rings on. I love men that wear rings, firstly. So the more the merrier. But
absolutely.
It's also one of those, spending money on frivolous things as far as that goes. I spent money on.
Would you spend $20,000 on a diamond ring?
Never, ever, 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 ever.
Now, I don't think my wife, thank God, is somebody that would ever require me to. You must show our love by buying me an $18,000.
It needs to be 30% of your annual income, according to tradition.
There you go. According to Bride Inc.
That's right.
My wife would prefer I did. She said, "Give me the $9.99 ring and buy me a house. Let's go buy some land so I can put up my my berry patches and things like that."
Right.
And
it's supposed to be a symbol, not an anchor.
Yeah, that's right. A symbol, not an anchor. Substance over symbolism, I always say.
Right. And that's so true.
But I was just going to comment. I do the same thing with my rings. If I take my rings off, take a shower, wash my hands because I got grease or something. Well, this is the one that usually comes off. Your
jewelry says a lot about you. Like when I looked at your jewelry, I think I have pictures of your rings in my portfolio.
You do. You took pictures of this one. Mm-hmm. And you've got I got this one that Ruben.
Profiling somebody, that's one of those. I said, well, if I'm profiling someone or conspiracy theory insert that, if I sit down and I only have an hour to do an assessment and I see rings, if I see shadows like Sherlock, or if I see that someone doesn't have a ring where it once was, or especially men because it's taboo, or certain rings for certain Freemasons, or those things, it tells a lot about a person, their jewelry, how they decorate. And it also is, that symbolism space that it's a quick profile.
Well, you've seen this one too. This is the one that was given to me by Ruben Fasthorse back in 2003. He gave me that.
Emerald?
It's emerald, and it's got two dragons that are wrapped around. You see the two heads on either side of the emerald.
Ooh, it's a Slytherin ring, a snake ring.
Well,
David!
You know what this is? This is the ring.
Well enough to know for sure. I need to discern better. Tell me more information.
It's the ring of Barahir. It's the ring that Aragorn wears in Lord of the Rings. Now, this is the one they made up for the movie, of course, but it's also the ring as described in Tolkien's books, with the emerald and the two dragons and the snakes that coil around each other around the ring. And so this is what, because Ruben, and everybody here knows Ruben Fasthorse, my friend, my Native American friend.
So freaking
and,
cool.
And he always called me, Scotty, you are the once and future king. He said, so the return of the king. And so he gave me that ring.
Sure, that means he's calling you we don't want to say, but doesn't that mean that he's calling you like a gnome?
A gnome?
If you're the true king?
Oh, the true king? Like Aragorn in Lord of the Rings. Which is
Okay.
And, I had done some work for him. I designed a CD cover for him and stuff like that. And they wanted to pay me, and I said, absolutely not. He and his wife. So they surprised me with that ring. And that's been on that finger for now 17 plus years.
Aww.
And so I like rings. And of course, you know this one. And this is the one you took photos of. And so, yeah, rings. Anyway, what I was getting at is I feel lost. If I get in the truck and I'm going to do my work and I look down and I don't have my ring on, I feel naked. I feel like, oh, I've forgotten something. I can't go without that.
Well,
So,
it's, they're a narcissistic thing, but then they're also, I don't know, for me, I've got my Native American one it's kind of the mixture of the Viking and the Ojibwe directional, and then my stones. But the wedding ring, it's always one of those, as a woman, if I get hit on or if someone makes a reference to, am I married? I like to sometimes just be able to hold my hand up and then turn it over to say stop at the same time. And that's much easier than inserting language, because as women, and in language matters, men usually reign supreme in just tone and vibration and volume. And if it's a he said, she said, it's what he said, because it's God, man, woman, child. And when you think about how scripture moves or how energy moves, it's God, the great I am. Man would be yang, the human. Woman goes back to yin, the birth, the entrance, and then child goes back to yang, what you give in legacy. So whether or not it's not male, female, penis, vagina, it's in reference to polarity, and that's an energy thing. And I believe that. And so I will default to that. And I think people usually default to that. It's biology. It's not sexism. And I want to be able to use my magic, and my magic is females. We have the power of physical presence. We give it up when we give up our consent. And so being able to do this with that, it will.
Now, explain that a little bit for me. When you say, when you give consent, you're giving up your magic. Are you giving up your magic, or are you? I'm not being weird here with my language, but spreading the magic. Are you
diluting
opening up to share the magic?
Yes.
Or are you giving something up?
Yes, all of the above. The consent, it is like opening that dam. Not only will your energy go out and therefore be influenced immediately in air. So like, I have thought long and hard that I want to be a comedian. And you go out and you say, I'm going to be a comedian, everyone. And people go, that's stupid, dumb, stop, and you're going to have constructive criticism. You're going to have air. You're going to have kickback. You're going to have pressure. You're going to have be met with an equal and opposite force to your passion. So you have to be able to work through it to get to fire, or work through it to have something happen, or for a behavior to be established. And you're going to be tainted. So you have to have a rebuttal. You have to be prepared. You have to be confident. You have to have faith. Insert whatever helps you through air.
Sure.
Get through the trolls. Shield, put on your armor, folks, we're going, but also you are going to have someone say like, you're a whore bag. And for me to be like, shit, I don't want to take that in. Yeah. But if I went out, and in essence, the gate has been opened, that you're going to be open. Like when people go, well, you should have known, LeBron, you should have known, you should know better. You should know that Justin Bieber, you're famous. You're not going to have privacy. This is that great. Is it Thomas Jefferson, or that says he who trades privacy for security deserves neither? It's not Thomas Jefferson. Benjamin Franklin. Thank you. See, I knew you would know that. And I agree with that, that it's that essence of consent. And that's why when you give your consent, you are giving your signature, you're giving your name, you're giving your reference, you're sorting and citing yourself. And absolutely you'll be associated with anything that therefore comes from you.
Now, speak of that the other way around. A man, when you're talking about the woman's giving consent, when you give consent, that's giving up some of your magic. What magic? I am one of those believers, and I talked about this on Friday night on this show, that there is no feminine side of masculinity and no masculine side to femininity, that we are unique beings. Men are men, and masculinity, when it shows what some people say, well, that's your feminine side showing through. I always say, no, that's my true masculinity showing through. Masculinity has tenderness. Masculinity likes flower arrangements. Masculinity likes window treatments. Masculinity likes fighting in the mud and punching
Scotty,
some guy out for being a jerk.
Are you XX or are you XY?
I don't know.
You're XY.
What am I? I don't do algebra. What am I?
You're XY. You're a male. If you had that additional testosterone comp, maybe you'd be XYY, but you're XY, you're a boy. So then in your zygote and in all these spaces, and as your cellular growth happens, you get a penis and testicles and all of these amazing things that are a part of your power. But at one point you had
God, I'm glad I'm a guy with a penis and testicles.
Yeah, but you started and were birthed from a woman. You are attached to a woman. And when you are combined with a woman, you have the magic to create a woman as well.
Yes.
And there's just like these really beautiful parts of how we're connected. I tend to see cultural behaviors or things presenting beyond the structural level as being extremely subjective to perception, because like, that's why I think biology is so important, and those dominoes falling back to like why a man is a man and a woman is a woman. It's not necessarily that a man wears pants and a woman doesn't, but it's the extension of the belief that a man goes out and a woman nurtures. And that's polarity. If a man goes
yes, Doug in the chat room, she called me a boy. She knows what a boy is.
So Sarah, what about the other 94 genders? That's to say that a Down syndrome person that has extra chromosomes, or individuals that have a third kidney, or any of these things, that they're not special or unique. They are, and not that they don't exist, because they do. But when you begin to present behaviors that this comes into a certain structure, and you see it cross-culturally, and some cultures do include the third gender when it presents, hermaphrodites, or individuals who have elongated labias, clitorises, or cultures that have great cutting seasons, like right now in the continent of Africa. You have country after country who there's a time of labia and clitoris of a female, because that's part of her sexual power. And in many ways, that's a small penis that she has, and that when she's going to be married, she's going to have another penis come into her life and rule her. And these extensions, the hermaphrodite, it's unique and rare. It's not that it's not real, but they usually are shamans. They're treated very special. And cross-culturally, they're not shunned or exiled. Usually they're seen as very, very, very like revered, because they have both. They have the power of both. The fact that in our culture, we look at someone who is born a man and thinks that they're transgendered and that they need to be a female, and you look and you go, well, you have the presenting genitals of this. If we measure your testosterone, we look at you and you have a healthy pituitary gland and you have a healthy adrenal system. You don't have any presenting tumors or any issues, like genetically you're this way, but you feel this way. Society doesn't care about your feelings. And over the eons, it works best if we have this, because this is a mirror of the lotus flower. This is a mirror of breaking down biology to the point that when something goes out, it's yang. And when something goes in, it's yin. When something goes out, and it's a speech or it's a behavior pattern or it's something that is done, it's usually going to default to patriarchal ways. If something defaults to in, like water or earth, a thought, the ability to multitask, the stereotypes and discriminatory statements that females are able to nurture children better, which is why legal systems should default to the females getting the parent. Well, that's not true. That's sexist. Why do these exist? It goes here. It goes here. Because in nature, if you drop a child off, one's got titties that gives milk and the other parent doesn't. In one situation, the baby dies. In the other situation, it doesn't. A penis doesn't feed a child the way a breast that's lactating does. People that don't know how sexual organs work may find themselves dying out in nature. And there's just certain things that are okay and not okay that present.
That's why I call it an abnormality.
Right. Well, we're more advanced now, so we can be superfluous in these areas and go, well, I like to wear rings and have fingernail polish, so I feel like more like a man. Well, maybe you're a fop if you were born 300 years ago. It's language, it's presenting behaviors. And if you want to do this, then go to Amsterdam and work on the Red Mile. Go over here where it's, hey, you could be a geisha. And some of those spaces recently where the mentally ill person that had a sexual addiction went and shot up a bunch of Asian places and it was presented as a racist thing. It was really interesting because think about a culture where females are abused and men go up and they go, hey, give a big happy finish because you're in a masseuse parlor, and they assume that. Well, why do they assume that? In what culture do you have women learning, actually honored, actually taking decades of their lives to be picked and chosen to be geishas? Are we aware that this, and is it right? No. Is it moral? Maybe not. But can we say that there's a reason why somebody would say this? Like misogyny? Like this assumption that Hollywood has perpetuated for a great many times, and why? You think somebody just made it up? Some racist somewhere in a writer's corner made it up? No, it stems from somewhere.
Well, I noticed too, as we're talking here, I noticed that you typed in your title host, Mrs. Sarah Soderlund. So now you put the Mrs. there. Now that's almost a big no-no in our society. Oh, you're identifying as somebody's wife, I see. You are not your own person. Explain why you put Mrs. there.
Well, I did because, so you guys know, for those of you who have heard me before on like the Situation Room or on Intrepid Radio, being here in Minnesota, doing law enforcement, doing forensic psych work, I really felt like raising two boys. I've been kicked back and forth in a lot of different conversations about really serious political matters. And I find that I'm always the guest and not the host. And I've hosted my own show in the paranormal realm and the psychology realm for years. And so recently, in the past few months, I've launched a Monday through Thursday noon show called No Man's Land, because I get called often, I'm too white to have a comment on that, or I'm too female to comment on that, or, I'm not, on pro-life, like men shouldn't be allowed to say this or that. And what's interesting is I guess I wasn't completely aware of all of the equal and opposite sexism and mistreatment of men by society until I was a mom of boys. And, people get upset that there's butterflies over here and dinosaurs over there, but circumcision in America is like some of the very first things that get faced in a way of parenting that are given to boys versus girls is very different. And I was raised by a single parent dad. My mom was the abuser in the relationship. My mom held my dad at gunpoint. My mom was the one who would call the cops and they'd take my dad away. I was also in the situation of when later, a few years later, my mom finds herself in an abusive relationship and I'm the divorce pawn and I'm there getting abused by her boyfriend. And we call the police and the police look over and say, is there a problem? And they wink and shake hands because they're in the same club. I know what it's like. I've been in these situations, and for what's between my legs or how I present to be the reason that I be treated differently. But do I think that it's a coherent, conscious choice? I don't think it is until you take the moment to think about it and then continue that behavior therefore. And people aren't taking a moment to think about it. They're not seeing that recently on The View, women are sitting there laughing about Lorena Bobbitt and when is it okay to cut a man's penis off and laughing. And that's not okay. And I'm trying to raise boys to respect women and their bodies, because I've had men that didn't respect mine. And you turn on at 5:00 to watch the American Music Awards or whatever recent award they're handing out, and it's women grinding on each other, doing the exact opposite of what it is I'm trying to instill in my home. And it's very clear to me to see where that there needs to be more voice and there needs to be an equal and opposite force in that space. And I get called all the time to shut up. I can't speak on behalf of men because I'm not a man, or shut up, you can't speak this. And so to put the Mrs. Sarah Soderlund, people say, well, why is that important? Because I'm married to a veteran. I'm married to a postman. I'm married to a man. I'm married to a man's man. I'm married to a man that was, had a mom and a sister. And I'm married to a man that he's, against abortion. And he's an atheist. And he's very different than me. But we get along great and we communicate. And I would love for people to hear our conversations, and maybe they could benefit. And if there's anything I can provide as a benefit or a structure or to help, because up here, like equity, it's like we're having a meeting on equity, and I'm kind of nervous that I'll be the only one there. And I know that other people are nervous; they're going to be the only ones there. And I don't want people to be nervous not to act because of air. This is air magic. It's meant to be pressure. It's meant to be pressured. And diamonds are made of such things. And I am not scared of pressure. I'm scared of other things. I'm scared of the long game. So I'm more than willing to put myself out there and for people to ask why. And it's important that women can speak for men and men can speak for women. And we are both and can be both, but we have differences that we need to use as a strength, not as a weakness. And I think we've been using them as a weakness and power tool for far too long. Women need to stop being the victim, just like Black culture needs to stop being the victim. The victimhood, that doesn't work well. And I can say that from a woman who can take many a platform of victimhood. Never has it ever helped me.
There it is. And, we're getting very close to wrapping up for today. I want to shift gears for just a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
First, I want to say, Raini and I have an opportunity that's been presented us to become almost your next door neighbor. My friend up there who has a business, you remember I was up there last summer, and we tried to all get together and we missed each other. But he's got a piece of property that lays about halfway in between the mile between your house and his house. A piece of property we put up a big steel home, and he said we could buy that and the 2 acres it sits on and do anything we want with the house, and he's going to add a home attached to it and all of this, and for a very reasonable price. And Rainey doesn't really want to move away from where she's 3 hours from her family. I said I'm okay with that. I said we've got Sarah up there, we got my buddy and his wife up there, but so we have a possible opportunity.
And you should.
I would hate to pass up.
You should consider it, only because I say, I live outside of up here. I'm outside of the cities, but I go to the city once a month, and I'm also close to St. Cloud, which I visit. I'm right near all the veteran spaces, which there's a big community of veterans up here, which is really great. And then also being a part of this community, it's like I'm in the cities. I was 6 miles away from my family. So now I'm like 8 miles away from my family, and a mile or two or an hour or two, it doesn't really make that big of a difference when you're making the journey. You're making the journey. And I have actually found the closer you live, the less likely you are to see that person.
Yep.
That's a weird thing. It's like, it's a proximity thing. And I don't know. I do love it up. I miss the food. I miss some of the culture. Someone in the chat room had shared that their European friends said that America didn't have any culture. And it's really that we like to cherry pick. That's our culture. We cherry pick the best of the best. We have the best of the Italians, the best of Jewish people, the best of American Southern people, Cajun people. We have the best of the best. At least that's what we'd like to think, because we've cherry picked from everyone that's come over here. But I don't know, up here I'm going to be taking so I own the studio, the photography studio in the Jack Pine Center, and it's a 2 lofted studio space. And studio photography, I like to be on location, so I don't use it all that often. So in the bottom where it's wood on wood,
it's nice to have. It's nice to have your studio, and you can have a studio setup.
Well, I'm going to be putting an additional studio setup for the podcast and doing the podcast out of the glass atrium. So if you lived nearby, you'd have a secondary studio for shooting things and merchandise. And
you need to talk to Rainey.
Yeah,
I need to get you two talking about this. So,
yep, it's fun. It's nice. It's up here. I still get my city stuff, and I get people to, leave me alone. And there's not a lot of crime, which is bad for my job stability. But luckily, the pandemic has provided telehealth, so I can still help crazy people from anywhere. So.
And by the way, folks, just in case you don't understand what we're talking about, Minneapolis, St. Paul is the cities we're referring to. And Sarah lives up about 2.5 hours north of the cities, up in northern Minnesota, up on the Pequot Lake area and Brainerd and those, if any of you wonder. And
closer to Canada than I am anything at this point, which
you're up in the North Woods.
I don't know.
She's in the North Woods, and you've got a lot of distance between homes. It's out on the lake, and in the woods. But you can go into town too, where she has Pequot Lake. She's got her own photo studio there.
Right.
It's a smaller town, but it's nice.
Yeah, so, we're under 2,000 people. So for anybody, I'm a city girl. I've lived in, different states across the country and traveled internationally. And I really love cities. So it's been kind of a hard adjustment for me. But I have children, and my husband's now the postman, retired military postman. So it's like, he used to be a shooter, and now he delivers mail. And I'm the town witch, and I do photos. But it's a fun space to be. Boring sometimes is hard for me to. I'm an old street racer. I like to go fast. I like to go fast. So it's hard, but we do the show, and that's how and where we get our excitement. And so I'm just really excited you had me. Anytime that someone falls through, or when Rainey can't be there because she's busy working, everybody's working.
You can be the surrogate wife for Sunday mornings.
I'll be the surrogate wife. And for those of you listening, be sure and post your comments or check me out at paranormalsarah.com. You can find me where I've always been.
Paranormalsarah.com.
Yeah. And you'll see all my stuff, my podcast, you'll see on YouTube there, or I do psychic readings and paranormal assessments and psychic assessments and psychological assessments, things like that too. So you can check any of that stuff out. But that's about it. It's a good coffee date, man.
Here's what we're going to do. Sarah, sit tight for 2 minutes. I'm going to sign off on the show. Folks, live long and prosper. Thanks for being here today. I appreciate you taking your time to come in. Hopefully we'll have Rainey back next Sunday. Not that this was bad at all. I'm not insinuating that at all. This was a fantastic time spent with my friend Sarah. And so I want to thank you all for being here. And we're going to sign out now. So you guys, we'll see you tomorrow night, Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time for the Intrepid Radio program. And Sarah, thanks for being with me today. And everybody, thanks for being here. Sarah, hang on. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Intrepid Radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.